Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. So I have to say, when I first was asked to do this, I very enthusiastically said yes. I mean, you know, failures, I had such a rich set of choices to pick from. And then I also started thinking, because part of Francesca's very kind invitation was, you have been highly recommended for this. So I shall not disappoint. But anyway, as time grew nigh, I have to say I was really worrying about what I was going to say more and more. And at some point, I thought this was maybe going to be more a demonstration than a narrative. But I'm going to share with you, you know, a pretty spectacular failure. A pretty spectacular failure, not just a short-term setback. You know, really a massive, well-documented screw-up. Let me start off with, you know, tub thumping and the reason why that was my song. So when I was a kid and a teenager, I used to go riding, and I had a just, you know, incredibly intense riding instructor, Madame de Volz, and she would make you get up on the horse no matter what. And if the horse had refused the obstacle, say I had gone over the obstacle just without the horse beneath me or something like that, which I thought was, that's okay, you know, the horse did get me over the obstacle, technically. She would make you get up. And she would also say, you cannot let the horse learn that it can refuse the obstacle. I dislocated my shoulder one time, she made me get up. I blacked out one time, she made me get up. This was the 80s, this was France. They didn't know about, we just didn't know about lawsuits or, you know, liability or anything like that. So, you know, she just made you get up, and that was it, because you could not let the horse learn that it could refuse the obstacle. Okay, fast forward to some amount of time. I've done my PhD, I'm working at Lincoln Lab, and I'm trying to figure out what to do next. And my very dear friend, Andrea Goldsmith at Stanford, said, you know, why don't you go into academia? Now, as background, I come from a family of academics, and I had decided I was definitely not an academic because I was normal. And I was very proud of this, and I was going to have a normal life. And when my advisor was asking me as I was graduating what I wanted to do, and he asked me, are you interested in academia? My answer was, absolutely not. Look at your job. Why would I want that? But thank you, because I was well brought up also in that family of academics to say thank you. So here I am going into academia. I have you know, mixed feelings about it. Not because I don't like the research and supervising students, but really, you know, this wasn't what I had set out to do. So I'm starting in University of Illinois. This is late 90s. And, you know, I'm eager. I want to at least show that I can do well. Now, I have a few things that are not going for me. I have one very young daughter. I had my first daughter in grad school. I'm pregnant. I am moving to a new place. My house there is not ready, so I'm really living out of a construction site. And my daughters asked me, why is it that in Illinois one does not have a kitchen and one washes the dishes in the bathtub? My husband at the time is gone every week all week, so I'm by myself. And I'm told that I have to teach, that I have a teaching assignment. Now, I'm told this in August, and classes start in August. And I'm thinking, okay, no problem, I can do the move, and I can move into this, you know, construction site with the bathtub where you can wash children and dishes, sometimes simultaneously. You know, I'm also teaching a very, very large class, which is a quasi-required class for graduate students because it's one of the qualifying classes for the PhD. And by the way, you know, this class is an absolute killer, and the students hate it. I'm like, no, that's great. I can do this. This should be good. And by the way, the class starts at 8:30. And that should be no problem. But remember, I'm by myself, and my daughter's school starts at 8:15. And I'm thinking, you know, I look on the map. I'm like, I can make from her school to the classroom. And, you know, given, okay, I have a little bit more drag because I'm getting more and more pregnant, but, you know, I can do this. No, this should be no problem. I've got this. All right. So here I am. I'm going to start my class. I ask my colleagues, well, you know, where are the materials? I said, oh, I think somebody has some notes. And there's a book. Now, when somebody told me it was a book, I thought, oh, this is great. This is fantastic. Because, as it so happens, when I was a student, if there was a book, I generally didn't go to class. I just read the book. So I thought this is great because, you know, if they're like me, they probably don't go to class. They'll just read the book. This should be a cakewalk. Don't do this, by the way, because then otherwise you end up like me, as I'm going to describe. You know, do go to class, please. So I think, okay, I show up in class, and I discover that the person who was rumored by other people to have notes did have notes, but these notes were more like reminders to himself of what was covered. So, you know, each lecture was maybe like half a page of don't forget to tell them about blah. But there was nothing before. So here I am. I basically have no notes. I have a book, and I have this class of people who are first-year graduate students in a class that's required for them to qualify for the doctoral program. And I'm a brand new instructor, and I have a completely unreasonable expectation of what it means to teach at this level, and I'm trying to teach the way I would have liked to be taught, which, remember, was actually not going to class. So basically, the class was a disaster. Let me just give you one vignette. I decided that since everybody reads the book, of course, rather than, you know, lecture on a particular thing, I would tell them to read the book, and I noticed with glee and a little bit of you know, nasty satisfaction that there was a mistake in the proof in the book. So I thought, why don't you guys look for the proof mistake, and then we'll discuss it in class. It flew like a lead balloon. Nobody could find the mistake because, of course, nobody knew the material, which was the reason I actually was supposed to teach it in the first place. The TA left, absconded with all the homeworks. I had a student who was deeply emotionally disturbed and would talk to himself loudly in the class, and I didn't know how to manage it. Basically, the class was just going from disaster to disaster to disaster, and my teaching evaluations told of this disaster. Okay, so at the end of the term, I thought, okay, that was the reason I didn't want to go into academia, and I thought it was because I was normal, but actually I probably shouldn't have gone into this because clearly I stink at this teaching thing. Now, you know, to give you more context, you know, my mother was a professor. She was a history professor, and, you know, she was an excellent teacher. I remember going to her lectures even as a child, and it was fascinating. It was captivating. Of course, you know, she had ancient Egypt and all that stuff. My father was an education inspector. I mean, literally, he would go to schools and see how people taught. So everybody around me taught and taught well. And I couldn't clearly teach, you know, a first-year graduate course of the most basic kind. Afterwards, I sat down and I looked at the list of failures, and I noticed there were several things, and I think this is what I learned. Just look at it and just divide and conquer, right? Because it just felt overwhelming. There was so much stuff that had gone wrong. First thing is I should have said no. I wasn't going to teach that term. I wasn't ready. I was just moving in. Second of all, if I couldn't get to that class on time, I should have either made a different arrangement, or I should have told my my department so. Thirdly, I should have not counted on just there being notes somewhere, and I should have learned how to teach. And I took that to heart. I actually signed up at the School of Education, and I signed up for a one-year course to teach. So I went to the School of Education, and I sat, and I took notes, and I learned how to teach. Because I didn't know how to teach, and I reminded myself that, you know, my father used to teach how to teach. So this was something you could learn like anything else. I also figured out that I shouldn't have just tried to ignore that the TA had absconded. I should have gone to headquarters, I should have dealt with it, and I should have gotten a new TA rather than trying to manage it on my own. I shouldn't have let the poor student who was clearly disturbed and in need of help just, sit there and basically be in pain in front of me. I should have intervened early on and tried to get him help. And when my colleagues couldn't advise me to how to get him help, I should have gone to medical and gotten him help. All these different things that seemed to accumulate one on top of the other were actually separable items that individually were manageable. And I think once I realized they were all individually manageable, and I could have managed them differently and not just felt like they were all piling up on top of me and probably constructively interfering so that, each, as opposed to having 1 + 1 be 2, it's like, 4 or something like that, I could have dealt with it. And therefore, I took that very much to heart. It would be nice to say in some sort of glib, facile way that, I had all these fantastic epiphanies and I never made those mistakes. You do repeat mistakes, but not as much. You learn. So you learn certain things, you start falling into those again of trying to manage everything on yourself, by yourself, trying not to say no. And you keep correcting yourself. You keep correcting yourself. And trying to sort of separate these things and deal with them individually. So sometime later, I was actually, thinking again of Madame de Volz. By the way, I made her sound like she was a monster. She wasn't. One time I got hit really badly by a horse, and she did seem genuinely concerned. But I realized when she kept telling me that it was about not teaching the horse that it could refuse the obstacle, it really wasn't about the horse. It was about me. I should not learn to refuse the obstacle. You have to keep at it. And of course, the first thing that she would do when you would get back on the horse was to tell her, what did you just do wrong? And she would divide all the different aspects of having to go across the obstacle and separate them, make them into manageable pieces, and deal with each of them separately, triage the things that hadn't gone wrong, the things that had gone wrong, deal with them individually, separately. Each of them was manageable, and keep getting back on the horse. So that's it. That is my story. Thank you.